you had to follow orders, you know. First of all, they gave you a dish with a wooden spoon, and that was your lifeline, you know. If you lost your dish, you know, that's where you ate from, the soup. You know, and you had to just follow orders. You used to get up in the morning. Naturally, we stayed in the appel where they counted you. So we stayed there until they counted you, and then they brought out the dead bodies from the night before, laid them out. Everybody had to be accounted for. And then you went out to work. We worked, and it was the evening. We came back, and there was an appel again at night before you went to sleep. No, my brother, I lost my brother 2 weeks after I was in camp. He did not make it. He got a beating, and I lost him. He was guest, and I was alone. Quite a few friends. I had two cousins in the Sonderkommando who were working. They were the people who used to take out the gas from the gas chambers and put them in the crematoriums in the oven and burn. Sometimes I used to go into them. Today you weren't allowed to go into their barrack, but I used to sneak in, and we used to sit down and talk. At one time I remember my cousin said to me, he says, if I ever, I doubted whether I will, but if I ever should get out of here, I will not be able to face freedom for what I am doing here, the things that I am doing here. He told me once a story about a woman who was, before she went into the gas chambers, and she was with a little girl, and she had two little bottles of poison that she gave her daughter, and her daughter says to the mother, she says, how come you want to poison me? A mother wants to poison your own daughter. And she says, you drink it, sweetheart. And she gave it to her, forced it down, and she took it herself. She didn't want to go into the gas chambers. I've seen things like, you know, somebody who actually died, that you saw somebody walk over and he had a pair of good shoes, he took off his shoes. Or he checked his pockets if he has bread, to take the bread away. He was dead anyway. You know, you saw these kind of things, you saw the day in, day out. So, because people were falling, and even in camp, while we were in camp, there were selections. They picked people up, they picked people out, you know, who couldn't work, they weren't too strong anymore. There were selections, and they took them to the gas chambers from the camp, quite often. It took weeks for me to realize, because events were taking place so fast, that you had to watch out for yourself. I remember one day I was in camp, and an elderly man, he wasn't elderly, but I mean he was there much longer than I was. He came over to me, and it's somewhere when reality set in, you know, and I saw that I don't have anybody, and I realized what happened to them, to my family. That he saw me, and I was walking around, so he says to me, he walks over to me and put his hand on my shoulder, and he says to me, a little boy, he says, if you want to exist here, survive we want. Nobody will survive here. But if you want to exist here, you have to forget that you ever had a father, a mother, a sister, or a brother. I didn't realize it at the moment that he told me. It took me a while to realize it, because if you started to grieve, then you were sinking. You couldn't watch out for yourself. I found myself on a bottom bunk in the middle. There was one dead body on one side and one on the other side of me, and I'm in the middle. How I got there, I don't remember. But when I woke up, I saw them laying, so I walked out on all four, and I went over to one of the men who were taking care. He says, how come you put me on a bottom bunk with 2 dead bodies? I'm still alive. So he looked at me and he put me up on a upper bunk. And a day later, as sick as I was, I went out of there and I went to work. Camp sometimes, and we heard planes flying over us. And we thought, you know, that the only wish I had that time, I wish they dropped a bomb here and I get killed with the Germans together. The nicest thing could ever happen to me is if they drop a bomb and I get killed from an American or an English bomb. That would be the nicest thing that could ever happen to me. For months I was walking around and dreaming about that. I still had hope, though. Although at times, you know, first of all, I knew that they wouldn't let me out. I'm a witness to too many atrocities that I saw. I remember in my barrack where I was living, is through a window, my side was the crematoriums and the fire through the chimneys, 24 hours a day. The fire in this, the stench of burning flesh. That was my sight, you know, and even so, you know, you go on.